What's going on, everyone? Talen here, and welcome to another Galactus video, or Galactus verse video, whatever you want to call it. In today's episode, it's going to be Blue Dragon versus Galactus. So, after doing my review of Blue Dragon, I was curious to see how she would do against Galactus, to see how much kind of raw damage potential she had. So I brought her in against the big man himself. So let's go ahead and check out my build on Blue Dragon, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the gameplay. So, for her gears here, we do have a little bit of Uru on her. We have one skill cooldown and one ignore defense Uru, and then I do have her final gear here up to 25 for that extra ignore defense, just because I was running out of ignore defense Uru, and I didn't really want to farm some or open up chests for it, so I decided to just level this up, which probably not the best idea because that uses up a little bit of your tier 3 materials, so definitely only do that on characters that you're going to be playing all the time. I do it just so the character is built up enough so I can get a good idea of them for these videos here, because I don't want them to be kind of underpowered in terms of their skill cooldown and ignore defense, because that can definitely affect them in a pretty big way. So here are her skills. The second skill we have leveled up for the lightning resist down. The fourth skill we have leveled up for the all attack crit rate boost. I think also that bleed goes up a little bit, but that's not going to apply here. The fifth skill we have leveled up for the lightning resist down as well, and it also has some bleed and shock. Again, that's not really going to apply here. And yeah, that's her skills. For her ISO 8 set, we have Power of Angry Hulk. It's just a stage 6, so just some 6-star ISO 8s on her, none of them awakened. For her Obelisk here, we have a lightning damage, max HP, and a 180 proc, so we do have a damage proc on her. So now last thing check here is her details. So we have max attack speed. We're quite low on the crit rate, it's only 41%, and crit damage is only 148, so those two are quite low. Again, if I was going to invest more in her, those are the two stats that I'd work on, but you know, I just kind of build up all these characters on my account to just kind of playable levels. I don't really go into trying to make them as strong as they can, so this kind of give you a good idea of where they may be with not really minimal investment, but with a decent amount of investment and not going over the top on them. And then we have 48% for ignore defense, so that got close enough to cap there. And then we have 47% skill cooldown, almost 48%, but her skill rotation is pretty tight, so having max skill cooldown is probably pretty important on her, because I do have a lot of times where it triggers on the 5th skill before I can cancel into the 4th skill, so then I kind of just have to wait that out there and you don't get as much damage, and the damage difference is noticeable if you don't do the 5-4 cancel and it just kind of procs on your 5th skill. So having max skill cooldown is probably pretty important for her, but the skill is still on an 8-second cooldown, so even with that max skill cooldown, it's still going to be very tight because you're 1 second overlapping the obelisk and when the skill is back up, because here we have the 16-second cooldown, goes to 8 seconds, and I believe, yeah, both of them are 16 seconds, so yeah, it gets pretty tight there for that. But she still performed pretty well against Galactus, so let's go ahead and hop into that gameplay and check out the fight. Alright, so here we are loading into the first Galactus fight here. I'm actually going to be showing two of them. I've got one teammate that just left right at the start there, so we just basically have that tier 3 Quicksilver to help us out for this particular run here. But what I wanted to show with this run here is that in this one, I was mainly just getting my damage proc on the 5th skill, so I wasn't really having much luck in canceling into the 4th skill. As you can see, it was just pretty much procking right at the start of the 5th skill every time, so I just kind of went with it and just let the damage from the 5th skill play out instead of trying to work in one of the other skills. So that's kind of what I'm showing here. Then we'll skip ahead a little bit in this fight, and then I think this is where, yeah, I get a little bit, yeah, I got a better proc on that one, so I got that at the 5-4, and you can see that there is a pretty good difference in the damage. It's not huge, but it's probably about maybe quarter of a bar to a third of the bar more damage if you get the 5 cancel 4 opposed to just damage, just the damage on the 5th skill. So that is something that's going to add up over time. Didn't quite add up as much as I thought, because during the next run I actually had a little bit better kind of plan to keep my rotation a little bit tighter. But as you can see, we timed out here, so after 10 minutes we did about 27 million damage, so Even with that right there, that's enough to do a third of the damage, because you want to do about 24 million is a third of his health, because he has around 71, 72 million HP. So that's kind of what you want to aim for. In this one here, we have a tier 3 Quicksilver with also a tier 3 Apocalypse for that team. So I wasn't sure how much he was going to do. We had 2 tier 3s, and then we have a tier 3 Jean Grey. So this one I have a little bit more support here. So my Blue Dragon isn't going to have to do as much work to get the clear here, because we have 2 teammates that are going to be doing a little bit more damage than her. But as you can see, I didn't talk about my team, because I have a full kind of team up here for Blue Dragon. I've got her own leadership, and then I have 2 support characters with Shuri and Wave. And I believe my Shuri has a what is it, a CTP of Insight on her. Is that the one I'm thinking of? So she gets extra 20%, so she has a proc going off from her CTP as well to help out Blue Dragon a little bit here. But what's different about this particular run is that I was getting a lot more consistent with my 5-4 kind of damage proc. And basically what you do to make sure that you get the damage from the 5th skill is you go into the 5th skill, and then as soon as she charges towards Galactus, or you start to see the dragon come out of the ground, you're safe to cancel the skill and you'll get all of the damage from the skill. But if you cancel it a little bit earlier than that, then the dragon will never pop out of the ground, and you won't get any of the kind of damage that comes with the dragon, so you don't get any of that residual damage. So you want to make sure you let the 5th skill play out just enough and then cancel it. So very similar to Slapstick, how you have to let that comic book kind of open up from this 5th skill, and then you hop into your 4th skill for the damage proc. So she's very similar in that regard. So what I found that works here against Galactus in particular, it's not going to be too viable against world bosses unless you do have them mind controlled the entire time, but you actually run away from your target, and then you use the 5th skill at just the very edge of its range. So the 5th skill starts, and then she charges into the enemy, so you only have like 1 hit to kind of contend with, and then you cancel into the 4th skill. So a lot of times that won't trigger the proc right away, so that way just the damage from the 5th skill afterwards, and then the 4th skill starting up, is enough to trigger the damage proc. So I found that works out very well here against Galactus. It didn't work out too well there because I wasn't far enough back from Galactus. I didn't get like the maximum range, but you always see me kind of walking away from Galactus every time when I'm getting ready to use the 5th skill, and that's the reason why, because then I can cancel it more consistently into the 4th skill. So that's just a little kind of tip that I have for Blue Dragon if you have like a regular damage proc on her, or a proc from like a CTP of energy. So anything that's not like a constant activation kind of damage source. I found that seems to work pretty good. It doesn't work every time, because as you can see right there, again, it's still triggered. That's kind of just getting a little bit unlucky, because there's only like, I don't know, a handful of hits, like 2 or 3 hits that are hitting Galactus before you can kind of dash up to him. So that's just getting really unlucky and actually having your proc activate on 1 hit. So and as you can see, it does happen more often than you would think. A 10% chance for it to proc is happening quite often on like the 1st or 2nd hit. But anyway, that's kind of one of the better ways to play her. So in this run, I was a lot more consistent with getting the damage to be on the 4th skill instead of the 5th skill. And yeah, it was a little bit more noticeable in terms of the overall damage. Nothing too crazy in terms of the difference. I thought the difference would be a lot more, so I don't know if during the first run, since it did the entire 10 minutes, if that just having that extra time, I was able to get like more skill rotations in terms of not having to kind of wait for Galactus's cutscene animations and wait for these kind of attacks where I have to avoid them, because with the other 2 teammates here doing a good portion of the damage. Of course, we're getting Galactus down faster, so it's not going to take the entire 10 minutes, but also that means that we're getting through kind of the animations a little bit quicker in terms of like these unblockable attacks here, where in that 10-minute period I'm going to have more opportunities for Galactus to do those attacks where I have to kind of avoid them. So that could have kind of taken into account a little bit of the difference in the damage as well. But overall, I mean, I'm happy with the results from Blue Dragon here. She was able to do a third of the damage, even when I was just proccing on the 5th skill, because I only got I don't know, a handful of times where I got the 5-4 proc to happen correctly in that first video that I showed you, or the first clip where I took the entire 10 minutes and we timed out. So yeah, she's good. She has a lot better raw damage than I initially thought, because I thought she was relying quite a bit on the lightning resist down when I was trying her out in World Boss Ultimate. But no, she's proven to be a decent DPS here, which is nice. But again, I have like a full team up going on here. Her own 65% leadership, and then we have 2 supports. One of the supports has a CTP of Insight, so she's kind of decked out here in terms of like the supports. So the only thing that I could really kind of do to squeeze out more damage with her is like replace Wave with White Fox, and then give her like a CTP. That'd probably be the only ways for me to really get more damage. Well, actually, that's not true. I could put some Uru on her to up her crit rate and crit damage, because my crit rate and crit damage are quite low on her. So those are 2 things I could also work on to get a little more damage out of her. But this gives you a good idea of where Blue Dragon kind of stands if you wanted to build her up, what kind of game modes that she would be good in, and kind of how well she would perform in those particular game modes. So right now she can do GBR just fine. You just got to make sure you have 2 capable teammates with you that can also do a third of the damage. And also you are going to have to maybe waste 2 of your supports depending on how good your cards are and what kind of obelisk you have on her. So as you can see here, we only did 18 million damage, but again, this was 6 minutes and 10 seconds, not a full 10-minute clear. So I kind of averaged them out. So the first clear with the 27 million, that's for 10 minutes. It's really easy to just divide that out by 10. So you will have 2.7 million damage per minute. And then here with the 18 million, we're doing about 19 and a half million damage, or 19 and a half million, 1.9, or wait. Was I? What am I trying to say here? It would have come out to 29. Yeah, so 29. So 2.9 million damage. 2.9 and a half. 2.9 and a half. So really close to 3 million damage per minute. So as you can see, it was about a 200 to 150,000, or no, 200 to 250,000 damage increase from using just the fit skill to doing the 5-4 cancel. So nothing too crazy, 250,000 damage difference, but that adds up. So that is nice to see that there is a good difference there. But I'm just kind of rambling on now, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and of course I will catch you in the next one.